All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Free Friday Coaching Call. Really excited for today's call. We do this call the first and third Fridays of every week. And for those of you that may be jumping on for the first time or catching the recording, this call started close to 7 years ago because for many, many years, Rick, my husband Rick, traveled the U.S. Teaching and coaching agents in real estate. And he would always give out his phone number and he would say, you need anything, marriage advice, vacation recommendations, real estate help, you call me. And so people would. And before you knew it, there was a capacity challenge. So he created this call as an opportunity to be able to get together with friends and continue to provide value on mindset and skills to people that are committed to their careers in real estate and to making a difference along the way as they go. And so we've kept this structure in his honor and in his legacy, and are so excited to bring you some of the most incredible leaders in the industry for conversations and topics that are relevant about business and life and your future. And most importantly, we really, really, really focus regardless of what's happening in present time, that the best is always yet to come. I firmly believe that. And regardless of how great things are today or how challenging things might be today, I definitely believe that the best is always yet to come. And so I'm very excited to kick off the call today. There is, I would say that this quote keeps coming back to my mind: in times of change, that the learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves perfectly equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And the bottom line is that real estate drives our economy. It's one of the top 5 things in the US that drives the economy. And real estate agents and professionals are people that, regardless of how they're viewed in the public eye, provide a great service and value. And there's such incredible opportunity to really help and make an impact in our industry. And so by being committed to becoming a professional, always bettering our best, and really jumping in and skilling up and continuing to grow and evolve and change, ideally ahead of the market and where it's going, there's great work that we can all do. So as we start off today's call, I'm super excited to introduce our guest for today. The topic that we're going to be talking about is mastering listing consults. And whenever I am listening to someone, and you may be thinking this as well, it's like, well, who are you and why should I be listening to you? In other words, did you read a lot of books and you know how to regurgitate and teach information? Or are you speaking from life experience? And the person that we have on the call today, Mark Boyland, has over 29 years of experience. He's top 1% since 1995 in his MLS, and top 3 out of 15,000 agents in closed sales for the past 15 years. So everybody that's on this call or catching it on the recording has an opportunity to learn from somebody that is preaching only that which they practice. And so, Mark, I'm excited to welcome you to the call today, and really excited to hear from you and learn from you. But before we jump in, would love for you to share with everyone kind of what you got, why you got into real estate, what's kept you in these 29 years, and what's been the best part? What are you most excited about so far?
So I'm sorry I missed what part of what you said, because New York in its infinite wisdom just sent an earthquake alert 2 hours after the earthquake, and it completely took over all of my devices. So if you could repeat the question, that would be great.
Yeah, so for most of the people that are on this call today, outside from a handful, are just meeting you for the first time. And so you've been in the industry 29 years, but what brought you into the real estate industry? What's kept you
Gotcha.
here for 29 years? And what are you most energized about as you look into the future?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an SOB, and what that stands for is son of a broker. And my mom was a broker. And back in the mid 90s, my mother unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer and she had to go for treatment. And I was working in television and radio at the time. And she needed help with that because her business is going to fail if she was going to do chemo and all this stuff. And I wasn't too thrilled with television and radio. It was a very cutthroat type of industry. And so I decided to leave that and help her with her business. And that's how I got the bug. I had been around real estate my whole life, but I had no interest in getting into it. And that was kind of the catalyst for me to get in. And once I got into it, I really liked being my own boss and working on marketing and learning and learning and learning. And I think I went out and took probably every single course I could take. I got my ABR, my CRS, my GRI. Still didn't have any MONEY, but in the second year, things finally started to click, and it just kind of went off from there. And I was very focused on building a team early on before anybody in my market would, and some new competitive marketing strategies and this thing called the internet. And just kept it was always trying to get better and better and better. And that's really what I enjoyed about the business.
I love that. And so as you look like you're at today, your 29th year in the business, over 1,000 homes that you've personally listed and sold during that time. What has you still here and still going?
Well, the business keeps changing. I think I said to my team, a couple of weeks ago, I said, it would be just kind of nice for the industry to just stay the same for 6 months. If I could just get 6 months, just to catch up. And but it keeps changing, and it keeps you on your toes, and no day is the same. And I like that, and we keep growing. And one of my most enjoyable moments is when we do have a new agent that joins the team, or any agent that's on the team, and they have a win, and they're building the business, and they're making a good income, and it's changing their lives. So that's a really fun part for me as well.
I love that. Well, you clearly have a proven track record, a lot of experience under your belt, and so we're excited to jump into this topic today, around listing and really how you've mastered that process based on results. Very effective at it. And what I like to say to people, going into it, is a lot of people, as they come into the business, there's agents of all ranges of experience that will be on this call or listening to it. Some newer, some a few years into their business, some seasoned agents. And the book Mindset by Carol Dweck comes to mind so often, about how anything can be learned and mastered. And so it can be kind of intimidating to be on this call as a newer agent, maybe thinking like, oh, I'm, right now I've mostly worked with buyers. I haven't done listings yet, or I've done a couple of listings, and I see myself more as a buyer's agent. But I really want to start this conversation before you go into the how-tos, and what's effective, to just say that regardless of where you've been before today in your business and the history of your business, that anything that you commit to learning, and by the way, learning from someone that's mastered it, means that you can accelerate your own personal learning curve, and by standing on the shoulders of giants, being willing to execute and to integrate. So as we go into like the actual application of what we're going to talk about today, I would invite everybody that's listening to listen through the context of, what am I committed to integrating and immediately putting into practice, walking away on the other side of this call, so that it's not just like a great cup of coffee that you have it, you listen to it, it's like, wow, Mark Boyland, you can see why he's been successful. He's doing amazing things. No, how is this going to relate to you and your business and the actionable items that you're going to take away? And so as you're listening through that context, we'll open it up at the end for a couple of shares, ahas, takeaways, for you to be able to share what's been most impactful for you about what you've learned and what you're going to go out and immediately take action on. So with that, I will pass it to you, Mark. Take it away.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Casey. No, that was a great introduction. I'm going to make the assumption that everybody here is at a different stage in their business. Some of you may be doing listings for a while. Some may just only be working with buyers, and some of you be doing a low volume of listings and a high volume. Sometimes in teaching a course, and I'll ask people, how many of you are going on 3 or 4 listing appointments a week? And I don't see any hands. And sometimes people are only going on appointments here and there. So most of what I'm going to go over today is kind of what I've developed over the years. I generally I'm going on 3 to 5 appointments a week. I'm now training team members on my team to do those, so I'm not doing as many. But I'm kind of designed for efficiency, because once you kind of get in the zone with doing listings at a high level, you have to have systems in place, obviously, to get through that, or it's going to kind of slow you down and wear you out. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Let's see if everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll just go through, and this is just the only slide I'm going to really show. The rest of it, I'm going to be pulling some stuff in, but you know, so kind of the blueprint of this is first understanding what your client needs. So I'm going to assume that you already have the lead, you know, and you've kind of converted them or about to convert them into an appointment. You know, we don't have to get into lead generation for this call. This is more of a process-based presentation. And so you want to make sure that you're asking them good questions that, you know, you're going to use to determine everything from their motivation to the potential value of the property, what they're looking for. And we'll get into that real quick. But you want to have a system for that. So every single time that you're talking to a seller, you're asking those questions. You're not just kind of winging it on that call. Next, you're going to determine, is this a 1 or 2 stop appointment? So, you know, 1 stop appointment would be where you're going to the house and you're doing it all in one shot. You're meeting with them, you're checking out the house, you're going through your CMA, your pricing strategy, marketing, whatever, and you're signing them there. Or is it a 2 stop where, you know, maybe you're in a unique market or a unique house, or you're dealing in luxury where you really have to see the property firsthand before you can take the time to determine value and understand what your client's working for. And then there's, of course, there's always the prep work for that appointment. We'll get into that a little bit and how we can make that a little bit more efficient. And then obviously meeting the client, doing the tour assessment, determining the property value, and showing them that you are the market expert. And that's a really key point that I find sometimes gets skipped when meeting with sellers. A lot of times we go right to the CMA or price, and we don't kind of show our value as the market expert or the local economist. And then you know, your marketing and process discussion, and then closing and getting paperwork. So I'll start out with our system, which Selena is very familiar with. And so when I get you know, a call in, or I'm reaching out to somebody and they indicate that, you know, they're open to meeting with me, I have a form. It's our preview intake form. And it's, you know, I go through this with every seller. I don't always ask every single question. I don't always go in the order that it is, because sometimes they provide me with information before I ask for it, or sometimes I'll hold back a little bit. It might be too soon to ask a certain question. But yeah, obviously we have our basics here, you know, name, email, all that, dress, that stuff. But, you know, we get into, you know, why did you decide to put your home on the market? You know, what was the reason behind that? Where are you looking to move to? What's important about that location that you're moving to? Because we want to find out, you know, what's motivating them to go to this property or go to this location, and who's helping you there. You know, they may not have an agent. So they're right built into the system, right built into the form is an opportunity to get a referral to where they're going. Because sometimes they don't have that agent in Florida or California or wherever it may be. And then, you know, we get into, when would you like to put the home on the market? So we're getting into timing, sense of urgency. They might say, I want to get it on in a week or a month. They might say a year. I don't believe them when they say that, but, you know, I'll write it in there. Okay, a year. And then I get into the more personal, you know, so tell me about your home. I keep that very open-ended because I want to hear what they have to say about their home. I want to see what excites them about their home, what was important to them about their home. Sometimes, you know, you get somebody that's very kind of closed up, you know, they're like, Mark, it's a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath Cape on a half acre. And then that's it. That's all I got. So other times they will go on for 15 minutes about every single thing that they did with the house. So I'll put in what's important in there. And if they miss anything that I need, such as the basics of the house, bedrooms, baths, obviously I'll ask them those questions and get into some more of the technical items. But I would say some of the questions that are probably most important on here are, you know, when they bought, or secondary questions that are most important, or is when they bought the house, what they paid for it. Sometimes I'm already pulling that up on the MLS or on our online tax records. So I understand that. How many mortgages or lines of credit do you want to have in the home? What's the current balance? That gives me a sense of kind of what their net's going to be, you know, after everything's done. But probably one of the most important questions to ask your sellers on that call is, what price do you need to sell the house for in order to make this move possible? Because if you don't know what the seller has in mind before going into that appointment, and you're going in blind, you're at a very big disadvantage. Because if you go through and you're being straight with them on pricing and all that stuff, and that number is not in alignment with what they had in mind. Keep in mind, their number may not be realistic. I understand that, but if you don't know what they're thinking, then what'll happen is you're not going to have an opportunity to have a in-depth and real conversation on value, and they're just going to say, well, thank you so much, Mark. This is great. We'll be in touch. All right, because in their mind, you insulted them, or you don't think their house is worth what is, or you don't like their house because you didn't give them the number that they wanted, or some other agent gave them a different number. So it's really important that you find out what their the number is that they have in mind. And by the way, everybody's got a number. They'll always say, oh, I don't know, I don't even know what it's worth, but they have a number that they're hoping for. Now, with that question, sometimes you'll get, somebody will come back and they'll say something along the lines of, well, isn't that your job? And my response to that is, oh, absolutely. I'm going to determine, or not determine, I should say, I'm going to go over the value of your house in the marketplace. I'm not asking you to tell me what the price is for the house. I'm asking you, what do you need to get out of this in order to make the move? So I'm kind of asking the same question in a different way. Now, if you still have a situation where they're just really not being direct with you on that, the questions that you asked, what did you buy it for? How many lines of credit? Dollar amount of improvements, okay? Asking that. You can now summarize basically, well, they purchased it for $500 10 years ago. They put $200,000 into it. They've got a mortgage of X. So I know at the very least that they need X out of this to, after closing costs, they need X to get out of here and feel good. So having that information at least helps me have a better conversation with them. And I'll always ask them, what are you looking for in the agent that you hire? I want to get a sense of what's important to them. And here's the key thing. When they tell you what's important to them about how they're going to choose their agent, you want to make sure you write those things down and keep asking, is there anything else? Is there anything else? Because when you go to that appointment, that listing appointment, you're going to base part of your appointment on the things that they mentioned. So if they are looking for somebody with great marketing or trust, or, is really good with digital media, okay, you're going to take those things and repeat back to say, hey, I know these things are important to you. Let's go through them. They're going to appreciate that, the fact that you remembered those things and address them directly. And then obviously you're scheduling your appointment here. Now, just a side note, with the form you're seeing here, this is one of those efficiency things. So I'll kind of do a side note here. We use Cognito forms. And once this form is filled out and I hit submit, all sorts of magical things happen. This information, the appointment is set up in my calendar in Google Calendar. There's an automatic email that goes out to them with a confirmation date and time. They go into my database automatically. And then there's a reminder put in my listing manager's calendar to call this seller the morning of to just double check that our appointment's on, because I don't want to show up to somebody's house and they forgot I was coming. It adds them to our newsletter list, and it also adds them to HomeBot, so they start getting the automatic property valuation updates. And there's a few other things that it does too. But this is all done in probably less than 30 seconds once I hit submit, which normally would have taken an individual, half a day or a day to do all these things. So it's important to note to try and build efficiencies into your process, because if you start doing more and more listings, then it's going to be harder and harder to keep up that good customer service and that consistency. All right, any questions on that before we move to the next step?
Before anybody pops in with a question, I just want to say you referenced Selena. Mm-hmm. For those of you that don't know, Selena and Mark worked together for several years, and you could see Selena's grin and the eyes rolling back in her head as you were talking about this form. But what I wanted just to highlight, in case anybody missed that, you can catch it on the recording, go back and watch. But I want to highlight, a couple of things is that there's this idea of go slow to go fast. And a lot of times when an agent gets business, it's like, oh, you're interested in selling your house? Yes, I would love to come meet with you. And they're in the car to head to their house. And this conversation saves you from yourself as an agent, in my perspective, because it's essentially guiding you through a very high level competent conversation to have with them, where you're not in an oops, I forgot to ask you about this, or what about that. And then it also is essentially helping you pre-qualify them as a client, knowing how to best meet their needs by some of the things that you're asking, in addition to like the automation and all the things that happen in the background. So just, it's sometimes not the nature of a real estate agent, because we're hungry looking for the next deal, to go slow, to go fast. But really, if you want to build a business and particularly build a business that's able to scale where you can have any kind of life, this is a really important part in the process before ever getting to the front door of that seller. And, what can you say just from your experience? This would be my question based on that. What can you say from your experience in doing this, of what your experience was as a listing agent in the market before this was your process in your system, and then after?
Yeah, so I can tell you the moment where this happened. I had gone on, and this is probably 10 years ago or something. I had gone on a listing appointment. I was kind of doing that thing where, you get the appointment, run out, and I would have paper sheets, like we had colored sheets in the office, forms that we'd fill out. And I went up to an appointment, and I get there, and it was kind of a cold day, and it started to snow, and I got out of my car and I went and I knocked on the door, and the homeowner wasn't there. They had forgot I was coming, or I don't even know what. And it was the listing was pretty far from my office. So I was out a ways. And so I go back in my car and I'm waiting, maybe they'll come back. And I was kind of frustrated. I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what a waste of time. Like, this could have been prevented. And I pulled out a sheet of paper and just started writing a whole plan out. Like, how do I make this never happen again? And this is kind of where that came from, is to have this system where there's automatically, we fill out this form and automatically there's a email notification to them. My assistant is calling in the morning of. There's a lot of follow-up before, I actually get there. And I haven't had that situation happen since. And it started as something small, and of course it's built into something bigger than that. And then we started adding Zapier and all these other systems that offshoot it. So that's kind of, where that came from. And if you have a problem in your business, take the time out and take out a piece of paper and say, okay, what can I do to fix this problem and make sure that it never happens again? And there's a solution there, no question. So I will say, sometimes I may get a call. I'm on the road. I'm not in my office. I'm not in front of a computer. And what I'll do, I'll just sort of ask some really quick, basic questions, and then lock down an appointment with them. But I'll always say to them, yeah, love to meet with you. What's a good time to come and preview your home? And then I'll always say, once I get the date and time, I'm going to follow up when I'm back at the office. I'm going to follow up with you. I have a few more questions about the house before I meet with you. Is that okay? And generally, of course, the answer is yes. And then I'll go through with this with them. I'll call them back and go through this with them, so I have everything. The other benefit of this, which is huge, is I have every single one of these in Cognito forms. It's kind of in a spreadsheet view for the last 10 years or whatever it is. So I can go back and reference stuff. So if it's somebody I met with a year ago, but they didn't do anything, and then they call me up and they say, yeah, we're ready now, I can go back and see everything we talked about, all the information they gave me at the time, what their motivation was, and then readdress that. So it's a great record keeping tool as well.
So I love two things that you said about that. Number one, like, it's the contingency plan, right? I'm not in my office. I'm not sitting in front of there. So maybe I just don't use the system, even though I know how much better the system makes me.
Yeah.
And that could be like so easy to just, be like, oh, well, I'll do it on the next one. And it sounds like you have very diligently created a discipline around, no matter what, whether you're in the office having that conversation and this is guiding it, or for some reason you take a call and you're not in the office, is that you have a secondary step to come back to it, so that no matter what. And this is the thing, it's like when we find things that work well, the consummate entrepreneur is like, oh yeah, that was working really well. Okay, but you stopped doing it.
Yeah, so
right?
this you're right, but the system forces me to do it because all the other things don't happen on the team if I don't fill this out. It actually stresses me out not to do it. It's almost like not wearing my seatbelt. I can't not do that, right? Now that I get in the car, I have to wear my seatbelt. If I'm going on a listing, I have to fill this out. Even if I can just get some basics in here, I have to fill it out and submit it. So everything else happens. The magic happens after that. So it, it's it, I can't even think about not using it. It's not even a thing. Yeah.
Love it. All right. Well, where do we go from here?
So where do we go from here? So we're determining if it's a one stop or two stop. I'm going to go through the one stop method. You know, just for time's sake. Once I get their information, providing it's a house that I think I can evaluate from, you know, because it's in a neighborhood of similar homes or, you know, a development or something like that, you know, I have a pretty good feel for. We're going to, once this process starts, there's a couple of things that I do. Not too much because I have a great team and staff that handles. I have virtual assistants that, you know, kind of take this stuff and start working on the whole presentation. But I'll go through and I'll pull the listings. I'll put them in a cart, and then my virtual assistant will take those listings and then she'll put them into a CMA book. And we use a hardcover book. So has anybody ever used Unibind or seen a Unibind book? These are really nice bound books. We have a machine in the office. We put the CMA, really nice paper. We, you know, bind it, put it on the heat strip, and it's a really nice presentation. One of the reasons we do that is we found when I hand that to a potential client at the appointment, they're always impressed. It's very tactile. It feels like it adds a lot of value. And if they met, I was on a listing appointment yesterday, and they had, you know, a CMA book, but it was like, you know, one of those like the plastic ring binder with the, you know, the clear plastic front, and it was like regular paper, and it just looked really cheesy, you know. And here I am handing them this book, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so nice." And I always say to them, you know, this is yours to keep. And I kind of make a joke that it makes great late night reading, and they laugh. And you know, it just kind of connects and lets us know that we stand out with them. The other thing that we do that gets put together once I submit the form and the comps, or as I like to refer to is relevant properties, is we use a service called Highnote. You might have heard of it. And then this goes out before I go on the appointment with them. And it gives them a little bit of information on me. It actually includes a digital version of that CMA so they can get started on it. And I found I used to always feel like I don't want to give them the information before I go because, you know, I want to keep that to myself. I don't want them to see it before I have a chance to talk to them about it. But what I realized and what I found is when you're doing the CMA in front of them, it's a lot of information for them to absorb while you're sitting there, and they don't really take it all in. And you know, as we all know, Paul Wheeler used to always say, a confused mind will say no. Right. So we don't want to be too confused at the appointment. So I send this out in advance now. And the good thing about Highnote is it sends you a report where you can go in and see that everything that they clicked on and looked at and how much time they spent on each thing. And of course, they go right to the comps every single time. They skip over my bio. They don't care about me. They go right to the houses and they start looking through things. So when I get there, they've kind of already looked through this and got a sense about what we're talking about. So that conversation is going to be a lot more informed when we do that. And, you know, it's got some other information, how the team works, the home selling process, understanding the listing process. We've got these monopoly boards that kind of show how it all works. And then, you know, they can see our reviews. They can go there and see all of our Google reviews. But this is really handy because it's another value add that the other agent probably didn't send them. Many moons ago, we used to drop off listing packages before, you know, we would come, and there would be all, you know, all this information in it, and you know, and this is kind of the digital version of that. So that's kind of the thing that goes out to them. So when I finally do get to, you to the house to meet with them, there's a few things to understand. They're watching every move, especially with the Ring cameras now recording everything that you're doing. You have to be very, very aware of that. And so when you pull up to somebody's house, first off, you have to be early. Do not be on time. On time is late, and early is on time. So you want to get there early. If you end up getting there 10, 15 minutes earlier than you think, drive around the neighborhood. You'd probably be surprised. There's some listings or for sale signs or for sale by owners in the neighborhood you might have not known about. Gives you a good sense of their neighborhood before you meet with them if you haven't been there in a bit. And you're going to pull in, and the thing you want to do is get out, leave your car, stop, take a look at the house from the outside, kind of check things out, look at their landscaping, those types of things, because they're watching you. Just so you know, they're watching you. And you don't want to be looking at your phone while you're walking up to the door. You want to get up there. You want to ring the doorbell. You also want to take a step or two back from the door because you don't want to be in their face. You want to almost be stepping back as they're opening up the door, because that has a subliminal effect of letting them know that it's safe and that you're not there to do any harm to them. It's just more of a thing in their mindset. The next thing you want to do is pay them a compliment if you can. Compliment on the landscaping, the door knocker, their pet, anything that you can, just to kind of break the ice. I always ask them how their day's going. That's a great way to start it off, and they'll say, "Oh, it's been crazy," or whatever. If they have a pet, love me, love my pet. So if you don't like dogs or cats, you're going to have a tough time in this business. But always, make a big deal about the dog, the pet, or if they have a kid, you can ask questions about that to a point. And then the next thing you want to do is, ask them to give you a tour of the property. And you're going to take out a pad of paper and a pen and ask them if it's okay to take notes. The notes are not as important as you think, but you want to convey that you're interested and you care, and you're going to take notes about everything they're talking about. Ask them if it's something that they're okay with. They're generally going to say yes. You get your tour, and then you're going to get them back to the kitchen table. Kitchen table, as we all know, is the best place to sit down because friends and family meet at the kitchen table. Strangers meet in the living room and other parts of the house. So try to get to the kitchen table to have that conversation. So when I sit down at the kitchen table and I'm talking to them, I'm going to be taking them on a safe island. And the safe island is where I'm going to let them know what we're going to be talking about and how this is all going to work, because that way they have a sense of calm that okay, Mark told me what we're going to do here, so there's no surprises. I'm not like waiting for like, well, what's next. So I'll let them know that first and foremost, we are going to kind of do a 30,000 foot view of the market so they can understand what's been happening in the market and what might be coming down the pike. We're going to go through relevant sales. I always like the term relevant sales because comps, especially in our market, don't really exist. There's no comparables. Everything's different. So I use the term relevant sales. It's also good to use the term relevant sales because if you have some properties in your CMA that aren't quite like theirs, whether it's condition or style or whatever, and you're calling them comps, they're going to be thinking that you're telling them that their house is like this house. And they're going to be like, that's not like my house. So I'll get into a conversation about these are relevant sales. They're not identical to yours. They're just relevant, and they're going to help us determine what range of value that you're going to fall into. And then lastly, we're going to talk about pricing strategy. We'll get into that. And then I'm happy to answer any questions on process or marketing. And I learned a long time ago that, and this is from Bruce Hardy, who was, I think it was out of Oregon or Seattle. I can't remember exactly where he was out of. But I remember listening to one of his sales tapes, and he was doing a listing presentation. And at the time, I had the most amazing listing book with all the marketing that I would do. And it cost me $7,000 to design this leather-bound flip chart. And it was just gorgeous, right? And I remember listening to his CD. I'm dating myself. And he's starting to get up to his marketing portion where he's going to talk about the marketing that he does. And so I was really excited. Well, what does Bruce do? He's this big top agent. And he basically says to the customer, suffice to say, we have a very aggressive marketing plan. And I nearly drove off the road. I was listening to this in the car. And it hit me like they don't care about the marketing. they assume you know what you're doing. What they care about is, do they like you? Are you competent? Are you providing them the information that they're looking for? Now, you have to have the marketing information, right, in case they do ask for it, but you don't need to spend a whole bunch of time selling them on what a great marketing plan you have if they're not really pressing for that. Does that make sense? Okay. Because they assume you know how to market a property. So, yeah.
I love what you said there. And I just want to back up to make sure people caught it. Without having to, have a PhD in human behavioral and communication styles, to, like you said, two things that I want to pull out and extract for people that are listening. One of the words is competence, and the other one is sincerity. And every person is going to have one of those be the lead and one of those be the trailing. And so what you talked about when you arrive at the home and offering them a compliment is sincerity. You're demonstrating sincerity for the person that's going to resonate with. And then in this conversation, you're demonstrating a high level of competence. And I love the difference in what you said, relevant sales versus comparable. And so you're through this entire process, for those of you that may not be catching what's happening, what he's doing is he's going in and out beautifully, Mark, by the way, of competence and sincerity in this conversation. And this is important if you've got a husband and wife or partners that, one resonates with one and one resonates with the other. It's in the dialogue from the get-go as soon as the front door opens. And so you're going to win with whoever you're in front of. Okay, sorry, back to you.
That's great. That's all good. Yeah. So then I start so now they know what the track is going to be. And now we can kind of start getting into it. And I'm not going to get into too much detail with this because, but I start with my broker metrics. You may use, there's other services that offer stats, but this is really where I'm showing I'm the local economist. So I'm going through supply and demand year over year. I'm picking the price range that their house falls into. I'm showing them, how inventory is dropped by 40%, and contracts, are down, or closed sales are up. And I'm going through each one of those. Now, by the way, you also have to determine at some point during all of this, does everybody know what the DISC behavioral profile is? Hopefully all do. You have to kind of determine, are we dealing with a high D, somebody who's dominant that get to the point? Is this a high I who's more social, more engaging? Is this a high C that's analytical, and kind of data driven, or a combination of a couple of those? So for example, if I'm dealing with a high D, I may not go through this as in detail. I'll say, Peter, I put this together to kind of give you a sense of what's happening in the market. Just the main takeaway here is inventory's down, demand's still strong, and that's good for you as a seller, right? But if I'm dealing with a high C, who's more analytical, I'll say, well, what you can see here, Peter, is that inventory is down 41% in your price range for your school district, and contracts are also down, which is not too surprising because obviously with less inventory, you're going to have fewer contracts. The good news is, though, your closed sales, the green, those are actually up. So the demand's still pretty strong there. And you can see here on the numbers on the sheet here, it's 66% down on contracts and 50% up on solds. So that's somebody who's more analytical. They're going to want you to get into the meat of it. And you're just going to have to customize your presentation depending on what type of behavioral style you're working with. I generally go through month supply of inventory. Other people use the term absorption rate. So I'll go through that with them. Average days on market, let them know how that works. List price to sale price ratio, I'll get into that with them. And then price distribution, which I think is important because it shows them where things are really happening in their marketplace. What price ranges are hot, what aren't, where the contracts are being written, where the inventory currently is or isn't. And that they really do like that sheet as well. I'll get into interest rates and talk about where they're at currently, where they were, how that's having an impact on home buyers in the market. And then sometimes I don't always go through this, but I'll show them basically, we have showing data, so we know if showings are up or down for MLS, show them where the trend lines are for that. Are showings going down, up, or the same as the previous year? So I'm always, as I'm going through this, I'm always asking them any questions. What questions do you have? Just checking in with them. Am I going too fast? Should I slow this down? No, Mark, this is good. Keep going, keep going. Okay, great. So now we're going to get into your relevant sales. Now, if I did a two-stop appointment where I was there previously just to preview the property, and then I was coming back for a second time, on that first appointment, I'm going to take a picture of the property and I'm going to send that to my assistant, and that's going to go into the CMA and it's going to go into the digital high note as well. If we can grab a photo off of Google Street View, or we can grab a photo off an old listing of the property, we're going to use that on the front page of the CMA. As far as the CMA goes, we all know about that. Generally, I'm handing that to them. They have the book, they're flipping through. I have the list sheets. I've made notes on those listings, and I'm just going to address some key differences or important things to note on each listing. I'm not going to get into the weeds on every single house. What you're looking at, Mr. Seller, this property had 3,300 square feet, so it's a little bit bigger than yours. We're going to have to do some adjustments here for your house. It was 5 bedrooms, 2 bath. It was on the market, for 25 days, but it was listed for this. They had to reduce the price, and it eventually sold for X. So, and then we'll go to the next one and they'll look at all. It's important if you have a CMA, I think, that it's a CMA report that has all the photos of the listing. I've seen some CMA reports that just show the main shot of the front of the house. I don't think that's very helpful to them. So it's important for them to see, oh, wow, the kitchen's new, or, oh, the hardwood floors look great, or whatever it is. So try and get something like that, especially for your high Cs. They want all that data. So I finish up, I do the whole CMA thing. We generally have a mapping feature in here, so I can show them, okay, your house is the purple house. This is the proximity to these homes that were in the CMA, just to give them that. And then, there's a summary here for you to look at your leisure going forward. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do with the sellers is we have a thing what we call what buyers can find, or we call it a AVA internally. And this is where we look at what the town is valuing them at for taxes. I take a look at and analyze how accurate the town has been with other sales. We look at price per square foot, and we always look at Zillow. And I don't always show this form to them. I might use it as a tool for myself. If the information there is something I think they should see, I'll show it to them. But it's always important to bring up the Zillow number, because they've all looked at their Zillow number. And if you bring it up and you have a discussion about it, that's where you can, openly say, oh, and I'm sure you've been on Zillow, and it said that your house is worth about $787,000. I'm not a big fan of Zillow accuracy. Have you seen it, and what do you feel about it? And that might be an opportunity for me to engage kind of where they think their house is, or the Zillow number they think is crazy high or too low, and then we can talk about Zillow. So I'll bring up these numbers as well, and then we get into the pricing consult or pricing strategy. And one of the biggest changes that I've had in discussing pricing is giving 3 prices. So if you've been, giving people just what they should ask, their asking price, or, giving them one price where the value is, or possibly giving them a range of value, I find the 3 price method has been the most effective, because especially if you don't know kind of where their head's at with value, this is going to cover you in that scenario. And by the way, for the most part, certainly our market and maybe in your market, there's no exact price for real estate. I mean, let's face it. So there is a range there, but the way we do it is I say to the seller, and you may want to write this down, there's 3 prices for your home. There's your defensible price, which is if we had to defend it to an appraiser, or we had to defend it to an agent or a buyer who's asking, like, where did you come up with that number? We definitely have the relevant sales to defend that number, right? And that number is usually on the lower end of the range. The next price is your market value, where we think the market will land with your property, where the market feels the value is. And your third price is your speculative price. This is if you have multiple offers, it gets driven up, or maybe there's one buyer out there that for whatever reason, this house is particularly important to them, and they have the funds and means to purchase it at that higher number. Does that make sense? Great. And I'll say, so your defensible price, I'm looking probably is somewhere between 760 and 780, somewhere in that range there. Your market value is probably going to be in that 780 to 800,000 their range. And then speculative, I'm thinking it could push anywhere from 800 to 820. And the reason it's important to lay it out for them this way is that as long as the number they had in their head is somewhere in this range, and the range has to be a realistic range. I mean, you're not making stuff up. It has to be able to, it would possibly sell within that range. They're going to be fine with your pricing, right? But if you go in with a hard number and they're even $5,000 or $10,000 above that, you might have a challenge with them. And you might not be able to have an open discussion. And you can see it on their faces as you're going through the numbers. They're going to relax a bit if their number is in that range, and they're going to be asking some more questions about it, which will help you, have an open and honest discussion about pricing and value. Now, they may ask you, about, well, can we price it higher? Can we try it here? We can try it there. And the discussion I have, and you may want to write this down as well, is I asked them this question. I said, well, tell me, what is the list price? What is list price? And I asked them, have you ever seen a house that sold for more than its list price? And they nod and they say, yes, of course. And I said, have you ever seen a house that sold for less than its list price? And they say, well, yeah, absolutely. So I said, well, then let me ask you this question. What is the list price? Is list price value? Is that the market value? And the answer is no. The list price is not market value. The market determines the value. The list price, all the list price is a marketing tool. And it's used to cause offers. That's all the list price is, to cause offers. So we want a list price that causes offers. And my recommendation is, let's make sure we price it at market value or slightly below, so we get as many people into the property to cause offers to get it to its true value in the marketplace. And most of the time, sellers understand that concept and go along with it. You're always going to have a few that are really nervous that if they don't price it here, they're never going to have a shot at getting it. And if that's what they want to do, I always say to them, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's your house, it's your decision, and we're going to market your house confidently no matter what price you pick. And we're going to get the job done for you either way. Fair enough? And then we move on. So once we get through all that, any questions on any of that? Okay, great. So once we get through all of that, we're going to kind of move towards paperwork. I'm going to ask them, are you ready to get moving? They look at each other and they say, yeah, we're ready to get moving. Then, I get out the paperwork. And this is really important for on the paperwork end. Sometimes this is botched up on the way you handle this. So you always want to have your clients sign a few documents that are not really that important to get in the flow of signing things. So we start out with our agency disclosure, our lead disclosure, our property condition disclosure, and then we get to the listing agreement. Because if they've already signed 3 things, they're now in a mode of signing. They've indicated that they want to work with me, and they will just keep flowing. And I'll explain the listing agreement to them, and I'll go through the points, and they sign there, and then we finish up any forms after that. So don't lead off with like the most legalese agreement that you have, because they're going to focus on that. They might think, well, can we think about this? Can we read it? Can we get back to you later? You're really there to get the listing and get the job done. So try and kind of find documents ahead of that to get them warmed up, if that makes sense. Once you get everything signed up, you'll kind of go through the process, what's going to happen next. You'll have a little bit of, just talking about whatever. You don't want to just get up and walk out, once you're done. You want to have a little bit of engagement, and obviously tell them that you're really excited about working with them, and we're going to do a great job for you, just to make them feel good that you're gonna get this done. And that's pretty much it. The other side, I know it's a little thing, and I forgot to mention it earlier. When you sit down at the kitchen table, if they offer you something to drink, take it. Don't be a polite person and say, no, 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 I'm okay, thank you so much, I don't need that, whatever. If they offer you something, yeah, a glass of water would be great, right? And that's just a little thing, because when somebody does something for you, it connects them to you a bit more. And it's a whole psychological thing. So do it. Now, if they're offering you like alcohol or something, obviously don't do that. I made that mistake once. you want to just, say water's fine, or seltzer is good. And that's just a little side thing that, I'll mention as well. So any questions based on all that? I know we're coming up on time.
I have one question.
Yeah.
And it may be a question that other people are thinking about. With potential changes and shifts in the industry moving forward, or what consumers are perceiving are potential changes and shifts in the industry moving forward, what is the conversation that you're having to communicate what you're going to list the price of the home for, your price rather, and then how that works?
So you're talking about compensation, that discussion? Okay. So when that comes up, well, I'm bringing it up for one thing. So if they don't bring it up, I'm bringing it up. So I let them know that come July or thereabouts, there is going to be some changes in the way that compensation is handled, and there has been kind of two sides to the fee for many years. You've never had to offer out any compensation to cooperating agents or buyer agents or wherever, but traditionally that has kind of been what's been happening, and I believe personally that system has worked, and it's worked well. But coming in July, the MLS is going to be removing the offer of compensation from the listing, and that's going to make some changes. So at this point, to be honest, to be completely frank with you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen come July. It's really up in the air. There might be some new business models. There might be some different changes, or it may actually kind of stay the same. We just don't know. So at the moment, we're still operating under kind of how we've been doing things. But you personally have no obligation to offer anything out to any other agent as far as compensation. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that's going to impact the sale of your property. I don't know if those buyers are going to be able to pay their agent, and if they can't, they may avoid your property. I don't know. Nobody does. So I can tell you what my fee is, and this is what we do for our fee. And then it's up to you what you want to offer out as compensation to other agents, or no compensation at all. What I can tell you is that, the 10 houses that we have here in our CMA, we're offering out somewhere between here and here. And you may want to do that, you may not. So I'm kind of non-committal on pushing that. But what I've been finding is most of the sellers are like, well, nobody's going to work for free, and I want to make sure we have full exposure. So I'm going to, offer out whatever.
So what I love about what you just said, and this is like sometimes the hardest thing to do, and if you guys missed it, this is why I'm bringing it back, is that conversation energetically that you had was completely neutral. And it's human nature to get roped into emotion and want to go on a roller coaster ride. But as professionals, if we communicate in the way that you just communicated, Mark, and you deliver important information at critical points in time in a way that you're not attached to what they decide, it is not your agenda that's being pushed. It is putting the power and the decision in the consumer's hand, and it puts you in the person that is the position of consulting them, which has your value go up. And so, depending on, I mean, you have years of experience, so obviously this is second nature to you, but for agents that don't have the amount of experience that you do, this is an important thing. It's not what you say, it's how you say that. We've heard it a million times. But really, in delivering things that are going to be emotionally sensitive to consumers, like potential value of their home. I love the three different ways that you pose that, and how you talk about how you're getting paid, what they may want to offer. It's here. It's here. And that's, a great takeaway just from seeing you model that. And we have this recorded so people can go back and listen to it over and over. That's what I wanted to jump in and say. I'm going to open it up for anyone else now to jump in and ask questions in the last 5 minutes that we've got.
Yeah, and we did for a while use a menu of services before COVID, then things got a little crazy. But we may go back to menu of services with all of this, where we have a silver or bronze, silver, and gold plan, or something like that, and they can pick what they want and how they want to market it.
Sherry, it looks like you have a question. You're on mute though.
I'm kidding. Thank you, Casey. I do. This is a really great presentation. And Casey, you made
Oh,
fantastic points there. Thank you for underlining all of that. Um, you know, Rick taught me um, really a few things, and he used to do uh, talk to the seller about how to get the highest possible, and in that presentation, he would talk to them about getting their uh, inspections done and the value of doing all of that versus putting a listing on the market. And a lot of sellers, you'd have to explain to them, they would expect that, oh, the buyers would traditionally do that, and why and how that would uh, position them into being able to get the highest bid early on from the get-go, especially if we're in a bidding situation. Um, can you talk about when, and I kind of came in late and I want to apologize for that. Can you talk about when or if you include that kind of type of conversation?
yeah, sure. So I don't necessarily push people to do a pre-inspection on their homes. If it comes up, I do tell them that I think it's a good idea. I'm not trying to overwhelm them with too many things at the appointment, because you can, and if they get overwhelmed, that's not going to work out either. But if it does come up, I do tell them. I said, this is probably going to be a good thing for you, because you get ahead of it. Even if you don't fix the things that they find in the inspection, at least you can get estimates on it, so you can be a more knowledgeable seller if you have to negotiate those items during the inspection phase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. And Selena put in the chat, please note Mark's in New York and they don't do them in advance like we do in California. It's a East Coast, West Coast thing. I mean, if you want to come to California, we've got that conversation.
Well, the law did just change here, so they're mandatory. There was an opt-out thing, but they are mandatory. So we do get those filled out. Yeah, I know.
Even,
We do get them filled out now.
even in Contra Costa County, they.
Hey, Sherry, you're cutting out. So I'm going to move to Tina and then Tracy just for the sake of time. Tina, you had your hand up. Go.
Thank you so much, Mark. This was critical information. This might be a whole nother class, but the lead generating to get to these appointments, you have a plethora. I mean, my gosh, over 1,000 listings. My mind's wrapping around that. Any advice in this new market on how to generate these listing leads? Is that a whole nother class?
So, I'm gonna tell you something, and you're gonna be probably like totally unimpressed with this, but once again, it just gets down to getting in front of as many people as you can, and the most efficient way to do that is in a meaningful way, by the way, and in a consistent way, and the best way to do that is on the phone, and just calling people, whether it's circle prospecting around your listings, whether it's just following up with all your sphere of influence, your past clients. It's just I just make calls and stay in touch with people, and it works out. And it doesn't have to be more. It's not some fancy technology or anything like that. And I'm not saying that you can't use some of these services to get leads, but once you get the lead,
yeah,
you got to stay on top of it. You got to call it. I have one new agent on the team, young agent, and we started, sending her some listing leads that I had, and I said, okay, I want you to call each lead 21 times until they either tell you go away, or they, decide to meet with you. And that's kind of the number. Just keep calling and leaving voicemail. And sometimes I have people I've been calling for a year and just dropping a voicemail or whatever. And then I finally get them on the phone, and I'm like, hey, it's Mark Boyland. They're like, hey, Mark. I've never spoken to them, but they've heard my voicemail so many times that they think they know me. So, so it's just getting in a routine, blocking out that time, and just staying in touch with people and reaching out consistently over and over and over and over again. It's get comfortable with the boredom of mastery, as Gary Keller has said.
Yeah, 21 times. The movie that flashed in my head was Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance you're gonna say it.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tracy, you had your hand up and put it down. Are you still have a question?
I was just going to say something. Hey, Mark, it is
Hey,
great.
Tracy. How you doing? Good to see you.
I heard you guys had a little earthquake this morning over there. You okay?
We did. We did. It was absolutely bizarre. So yes,
You have to go check all those listings now. Make sure there's no more cracks or anything.
that's right. That's right.
Anyway, really quick. I think High Note is great. Mark Choi, a friend of mine, developed that, and it is a incredible product. One of the things that we've done with it is, because we do have so many disclosures here in California, is we actually have a disclosure section where we put that in there and we let them review those disclosures like before we go to that appointment as well, which is very helpful, as well as what does if you're going to start doing pre-inspections, here's what an inspection would look like, here's what it is, so that they can have time to review that. Yeah, I just I think that that's a great thing for you there to be able to do it, as in coming into those multiple offer situations, which will happen is if we're not getting enough listings out in the market, we're definitely going to be having those multiple offers. So I think it's great that you're going to be working in that direction. But this has been great. It is great to see you. I know you're rocking it out of the park. So thank you for your time today.
You as well. And the nice thing about High Note is you can have different templates. So we have different templates for luxury, kind of mid-range, kind of, co-ops, condos. So I can customize the template that goes out. And yeah, correct. You can add anything to High
And you
Note.
can add videos now. You can put drop
videos, disclosures, and
Really
all
nice.
that stuff. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
I love that. Well, we are just past the top of the hour. So I want to thank you, Mark, for your time, for your servant's heart and being willing to share, for being a master in your craft, and clearly somebody that's learning based and always looking for how you can grow, improve, and make things better, yourself, your business, the people that you're in business with. And so we are really honored that you spent an hour with us here this morning, and look forward to having you back at some time in the future.
Yeah, sure. No, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you everybody for showing up. And I hope just take one or two things, just implement them. Just do it today. Just do it. Don't hold back. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank
All
you.
right. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.